This week, Bridger Anderson, steer wrestler extraordinaire. Duchess Gelato, taking farm pictures, feeling snug, old barns, and old granaries. Confused? Well, I can't say it'll be any clearer after we get done, but this is the Rural Reflections Podcast. Welcome to the Rural Reflections Podcast, co-hosted by Dave Nelson in Carrington, North Dakota, and me, Grant Nelson, here at the studios of Thief River Falls Radio. Dave, we always like to start it off with a little bit of coffee talk, so how are things going out in Carrington?
Well, yesterday it was supposed to be 41, and we had 49.
Ooh.
So today it's supposed to be like 51, so I'm hoping we're going to really be pushing 60 today. And there's been a perfect makeup fall for what we had last year.
Yeah, it really has been. You know, I think Santa Claus is probably going to be wearing shorts this year because it's awfully warm outside. And, you know, during the warm weather, I always think about nice, cool treats, but even, I don't know, pretty much year-round you can have them. But you sent me a little story on Marcia Murphy from Carrington, who is, let's see here, the founder of Duchessa Gelato. Now, she's a Carrington gal. Seems like all those Carrington people are always doing something interesting all the time or building some kind of entrepreneurial thing. Can you tell us a little bit about Marcia?
Well, she's a daughter of the people that own the Van Deduff Dairy here. And she's a emergency room nurse. And she wanted to do something in the family dairy. She has two brothers that are in the dairy. So I don't think she wanted to milk cows, but
good move.
Anyway, she started this Duchessa Gelato, and you know it's a high end treat. I mean, it's something you don't see every day. It comes in its own little branded plastic container jar, you know, with a lid, a screw-on lid, and so on. And so it's a great little thing for weddings and so on. So she started that up, and first it was free samples for everybody at some little events, you know, and then when everybody found out how really good it is, it just spread and spread, and she's got the same ambition as the rest of the family, and so it's just kind of kept growing and growing. Her husband and her had bought a neighboring farm that was a dairy farm, and they have built a creamery there, and so they're going to have a place called Cows and Company Creamery, and it just kind of keeps growing and growing and growing, and they get more events, and they have online orders and so on, and they have pickup places. It's really funny because the pickups are organized. They have a refrigerated trailer, you know, and it's usually like in the Walmart parking lot at Fargo, or it's in the TSC parking lot in Grand Forks, or, you know, something like that is where people pick up their orders at. And we actually send it around on the High Plains equipment parts transfer every now and then, because there's people either in Harvey or Rugby or Devil's Lake that want some. So we have a little refrigerated cooler that we send along with the parts transfer.
You got to be kidding me. I love that. I love that. I got to ask you, though, does the gelato all make it there? Does the delivery man have to have a gelato-fueled delivery?
Well, you know, they think he hasn't taken any, but he always wants some. And he wants a free one for hauling it around for him. Of course, he's already getting paid. But it's pretty funny because he always asks for some, and Sarah is the one that kind of spearheaded that. It's mostly the ladies, you know, that
sure.
Want this gelato orders and so on. But anyway, the secretaries all have some, and they're all guarding their gelato so that the parts transfer guy doesn't get any.
Well, I bet you Marcia and your daughter Sarah get along pretty well because Sarah's kind of a hard charger too. So I bet they do real well together. Now, another fella out in Carrington, young Bridger Anderson, is a pretty good cowboy, I understand.
Yes, he's been since he was a little kid. You know, he's been a kind of the top of his age group or whatever. But it just pretty much went real big time last year. He was a college rodeo star and all that, but he got qualified for the national finals, and he was in the, I forget what it is, the big one in Texas, and he had a little problem. He lost one steer. I don't remember what happened. He's a steer wrestler, but anyway, he lost one or something happened, and he didn't score as high as he would normally. So he didn't win that one. He placed in it, but now he's had 2 of, I believe they have 10 10 runs they make, okay. And he's had his first 2 now. And last night on the news it said that assures him of a 4th place, or they figure 4th place winnings. So he's up in the top 10 for sure of the national finals rodeo and steer wrestling. And the first one, if you watched it, he threw the steer and spun the whole thing about 360 degrees. The steer was probably standing back up on his feet after he got done with that one. I think he was really pumped up for that first run.
He must have been. Hey, before we take a break, too, I got to ask you, you sent me a really great picture this morning. That looks to be a sunrise over Carrington. These pictures you are taking, I mean, is there a special filter you put on them or anything like that to make them look so pretty?
No, it's right out of the camera. It's so easy to take a picture because the sight is already there, you know, when it gets like that. I don't know, these sunsets where you get a few clouds and stuff, and this time of year and so on, it's just almost everyone. This was sunset, I think it was on Friday night. I was just checking the doors to go home from work, and I looked outside, and it was doing that. So I just snapped a picture of it. And so I'm not really very skilled at making a picture look good. It's already got to be good when I just take a picture of it.
Well, you've got an eye for it. You know, I take pictures too, but I think I've got more of Mom's talents for taking pictures because I do everything she did, except I don't usually cut off the heads of the people when I'm taking the picture. Now, she didn't do that much. She did it every once in a while, remember?
Well, nowadays you can't hardly do it.
No, you can't.
Because, I mean, you can see what the picture looks like now when you take it with camera. In the old days, you had to judge what was going to fit inside of the frame, you know?
Yeah, and she was taking pictures with that little 110 digital, those little ones that look like about the size of a pack of cigarettes or something like that. That was a little bit different technology back then.
Yep, it sure was. Everybody's a photographer nowadays.
They sure are. Let's take a quick break. We'll do my online column, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about old farm buildings, barns, granaries, whatever comes up. This is the Rural Reflections Podcast. I'm Grant Nelson. This is Rural Reflections. Now, I think most homes are a little more crowded lately. The COVID-19 pandemic kept many workers at home to perform their daily tasks. If for no other reason, having 1 or 2 people home for the 8 hours they normally would have spent at work makes home a snugger fit. This might be an okay thing. It is at our place. I want you to see our home as a doll's house, one of those houses you can open and see all the little rooms. I'm going to tell you about our home using this point of view, almost like a cutaway. First, though, I need to give you a little background. Lisa and I live on a farm. We have for years. It's a home that was built for a medium family. However, we've made it more open with lots of living space. There's 2 bedrooms left, and we occupy one. I've made the second bedroom into a studio and an office. The old roll-top computer desk has been transformed into Lisa's cubicle as she works from home. I work upstairs and also work out in this room. We've also added some more occupants of our home as we recently added one kitten and one mother cat to our small staff of 2 tomcats. Okay, you have the lay of the land. Ours is a busy home. I'm up about 3 in the morning and greet the morning with 4 sweet, tired, furry faces. 5 furry faces if I haven't shaved. The downstairs lights have been off for only 5 hours since Lisa joined me upstairs as I go to bed about 8 o'clock. The kitchen light and the small red light on the coffee pot are all that guide me. If you were to open our home, you would see Lisa's cubicle was quiet except for the light of a small server that I store what I write in the pre-dawn hours. The scene upstairs would be quiet and warm, while downstairs things are now only warm. Afternoons are a reverse of the morning, so let us look into our house from the top down, past the roof, through the blown-in insulation and sheetrock, and view the second floor where I'm in my office in a large chair where I take a nap, while Lisa is at full speed downstairs and talking with customers. When I used to take my nap downstairs, I would occasionally wake up answering the questions Lisa was asking her customers. When we were both in quarantine, Lisa was downstairs in her cubicle speaking with people from around the world. Well, upstairs, I was talking to many of you on the radio. Meanwhile, a network of cats move up and down the steps or patrol the kitchen floor for food. Now, when I purchased this farm as a single person, I used to only live on the first floor. I even walled up the upstairs and heated the first level. Going upstairs was like visiting an abandoned home. I like it better now, as we utilize every room, sometimes all at the same time. Our house is now full of us, full of cats, and full of quiet places where either work or peace can occur. Sometimes all at once. It is snug. I'm Grant Nelson. This is Rural Reflections. Part 2 now, the Rural Reflections podcast. Dave and Grant here. And Dave, I'd like to talk about old buildings, and I want to kind of set this up by where my inspiration came for it. Now, the first place our mom and dad ever lived on together, at least I believe it was the first one, was the old Palmer Bevolden residence southwest of Thief River Falls. Now, Kyle and Danny Miller bought that, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, maybe even more, I don't know. And they've lived there ever since, and they've been doing some work. And recently, they tore down the old barn. It had gone through a windstorm. That last windstorm we had kind of twisted it a little bit, so they ended up tearing it down. And I got the hay trolley out of it and the cupola. I'm doing some projects with those. And they are putting up a new metal shed on top of some pretty good concrete. So it'll continue on as a horse barn, really, now. But it just got me thinking about old buildings and, you know, some of the places that you and I have both seen. Particularly, I think about the home barn at home with all that hay upstairs in the barn during the wintertime and just being able to kind of stay indoors and feed the cattle, whether it was out of the silo or whatnot. It was just kind of a neat place to be sometimes. I didn't want to milk cows in there, but I like feeding cows. But it was kind of a neat place to be, wasn't it?
It sure was. It was a welcoming place, I guess. You know, you'd go in there and you could see the 40 cats all rolled up on the floor, you know, and warm in a pile of straw. And cows all resting, and it was a welcoming place for a farm kid, I guess.
Sure was. No, like at our place, we had an old granary. We moved that over for a garage, and slowly over time, I mean, painfully slow, I've refinished it and got metal on it and everything. I'm scared of heights, so everything has to be like taking my life in my own hands every time I go up on the ladder. But I really appreciate those old structures. There's something about them that I want to save them and I want to keep them around. And I don't know if it's because they're built so well or nostalgia, or I don't know which one is more for me.
I know I've been offered an old granary.
Ooh.
And I think a lot of them are 16 by 20, if I'm not mistaken. And it's really nice, completely tinned on the outside, and I wanted to see about bringing it into town and stuff, but lost all my ambition for it. But I wanted to take the old tin off the sides and put it on the roof.
Ooh.
You know, put an old galvanized roof on it. That galvanized tin is in excellent condition.
Yeah.
And then, you know, do something with maybe a sign or two on the outside, you know, an IH sign or something, but never did get to that. But there's a lot of those old granaries around. And there's also quite a few old farm elevators that were from the days where they would, you know, drive through with horses, and they'd have different tubes and slides, you know, where they could open up different bins and so on, and put feed in a wagon or put haul grain into town by taking it out of one of the bins. And all of those old elevators on the farm are still standing. There's several of them that people have kept up nicely. They don't use them, but there's one in particular south of Hatton on the way to Carrington, or for me on the way to the Thief River.
Yep.
And that one is just so awesome.
On the west side of the road.
Yeah, on the west side of the road.
Yep.
It's on a hill.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. That one always strikes me too. I always think that looks like a painting. It looks like they saw a painting of a beautiful, idyllic farmyard with an elevator, and they said, well, let's go out and build that.
I know. I wanted to take a picture of it when I go by.
Yep. Well, you're going to have to, because you take some awfully nice pictures. Now, before we got on the air here, we were talking a little bit about our grandfather's barn that he had put up, and that was also southwest of Thief River Falls. And that was a log barn that he put up. And then he passed away, and our grandmother went on she hired a carpenter to come and finish it up. Well, a few years ago, that was going to be torn down because it had seen its better days. But the current owner let me go out there and cut a couple logs out. About 2 4-foot chunks is kind of what I cut out of it. And I was amazed when I got it out that each log had a hole that looked like it had been, I don't know, chipped or worried away or done something, and then about a 3-inch branch or chunk of wood, it looked like a branch to me, a straight branch, had been driven down through all the holes to pin it together. And I just wonder, Dave, at the work ethic of somebody who'd be willing to do that. I
know. Can you imagine you putting up, you know, 1 log a day, or, you know, 2 logs a day, maybe, if you're lucky, and finding that 3-inch branch to drive through there and so on, you know?
Yeah.
It's amazing the handwork that went in there. I suppose if you ever watched an Amish barn being built, you know, that's probably still the same old, or some of the same old technology used there, but you had to make a 3-inch hole through a 12-inch beam or 8-inch beam or something like that, and then have them line up enough so you could drive the pin through. It's unbelievable.
It would have been an awful lot of work and an awful lot of fitting, and put it up and you decide it's not right and you got to take it down and do it over again. And I think about hurrying, trying to get ready for the winter. Obviously you'd be building it in the summer or spring or maybe fall, and you're trying to hurry up to get it all done before the winter comes on. And that would have been really something. It wouldn't have been that pleasurable. Nowadays, we could build something like that. We'd have power tools, and we wouldn't have a big timeline or anything like that. Back then, it was probably a matter of life and death for some things.
Sure.
Dave, I suppose I should let you go. You got anything else for us this week?
No, I guess not. I'm just planning on enjoying a week of high 40s, and then maybe next week looks like we'll maybe have some high 30s, but I would like to have the snow hold off for a little bit longer. I'm getting greedy, so maybe around Christmas time we could have a little bit of snow.
You know, that'd be all right with me. I already doubled up on straw over the septic system in the drain field, so I'm not too worried about getting snow, so I'm right there with you, Dave. And we'll talk to you next week. You have a good week. Tell everyone hello out there in Carrington for us, would you?
Will do.
And send us some Duchess gelato.
Well, okay, but, you know, you can't really mail it, so you have to arrange a pickup site for it and meet you somewhere.
I'll talk to Sarah about that.
Okay.
Talk to you next week. There he is, my brother Dave Nelson in Carrington, North Dakota. I'm Grant Nelson here at the studios of Thief River Falls Radio, and this is the Rural Reflections Podcast.